Hello and Assalamu alaikum. So, this is Ali K. Chishti for the War Room from Pakistan. You've seen the conflict escalating between India and Pakistan, and this is uh, this is a situation which is extremely worrying. Of course, from a Pakistani point of view, we'll be taking on certain points um, as to what is happening, and I would like to highlight our viewers, of course, and, and that is in moments. Um, in moments of heightened conflict between India and Pakistan, security is not just the responsibility of military, becomes a collective national duty. Today, Pakistan stands vigilant on ground, in the skies, and at the sea. Armed forces are fully alert. Our diplomatic channels are active, and our nation remains united. While we continue to advocate for peace and stability in the region, let there be no doubt that any aggression will meet with a firm, calculated, and resolute response. In safeguarding our sovereignty, we are prepared across every domain. And I'm going live from a naval defense access to information security, from frontline troops to strategic diplomacy. Pakistan is ready. And in this moment, let me just remind you that we are close to a war which we don't want. But if the push comes to shove, I think Pakistan is ready for the war. And I've spoken to friends and family um, and dearest of our brothers and sisters who are in the forces. As somebody who has reported on national duties for for over 15, 18 years, I could tell you uh, that the Pakistan is ready for a war. Um, so in this session, we'll talk about Pakistan preparedness. So we talk. So India came up with expelling military attaches and defense attaches, and calling their naval people and defense people, and by suspending, as they call it, the Indus Water Treaty. Of course, Pakistan came back, and you know, um, and Pakistani said, we don't agree with. In fact, we cancelled the Shimla Agreement, which was effectively where Pakistan, as of now, doesn't. There is no line of control. So Pakistan now considers de facto the area of Jammu and Kashmir as disputed territory with no demarcation. So Pakistan has agreed that there is no Azad Kashmir from Pakistan's perspective, and there is no border, or what we say, the line of control at the moment. That is pretty significant. Pakistan responded with some other administrative moves, but to me, two things struck. One was, of course, how Shimla Agreement was cancelled by Pakistan, which effectively leaves no, and I repeat, no line of control at all. So, in de facto, Pakistan doesn't agree with any of the borders or consider now Kashmir as a disputed territory. It did, but of course, we had this demarcation, or what we call the line of control, which is not there from Pakistan. So that means that Pakistan could go into, or India could go into. And so it's free for all, anyone's to take that region. So how is Pakistan prepared? We talked about. So this is the situation. The Pakistani National Defense Committee or Security Council met. Of course, they came up with this, and then followed by a National Nuclear Command authorities meeting. Of course, Pakistan reiterated that they want peace, but of course, peace with dignity. But of course, they came up with a very special point, and which I had been advocating, and General Kitwai in a nuclear doctrine had previously said uh, that water is the threshold and part of national security doctrine. Just to um, tell you that 90% of Pakistan's fresh water comes from what we call in this water treaty through um, from the Himalayas to Jammu and then to Pakistan, and that so Pakistan then considers that as a threshold. So any attempt of blockade would mean an act of war. So let's talk about some of the options. So what has Pakistan done? Of course, we've I'll give you a name, the naval posturing and blockade readiness. So there's been talk about Indian Navy's blocking, Pakistan, Pakistani trade, of course, which is, to be honest, which is over the top. But Pakistan. So what did Pakistan Navy shifted to a high alert defensive posture to protect sea lines and strategic assets. There were strong internal discussions about imposing counter blockades. Now, if India attempted any naval aggression, Pakistan will block India, and of course, all those ships are going towards west, and exports would go down in a moment. So Pakistan have this leverage. Deployment of submarines and maritime surveillance intensify to preempt threats. Of course, Pakistan is close to equal parity with Indian submarines. So Pakistan traditionally had uh, Pakistan, at least on the naval part, believed in an attack force. That's why we had more submarines at one time. So a navy um, is prepared, of course, and is prepared to actually counter or block Indian sea routes if push comes to shove. And if that comes, um, billions in dollars of trade of India would go down, stock markets would break. Um, in terms of air defense, of course, full activation of Pakistan Air Force defenses. Um, we've just acquired S-125 Pechora systems, HQ-9, and we have indigenous anti-aircraft assets which are active at the moment. Key airbase are operational and are combat ready forces. If you see um, uh, the posturing which the Pakistanis did, of course, after this was at the National Security Council. If you see the uniforms uh, of our military generals or of a defense forces, they were actually wearing combat ready uniforms. These are not normal times, my friends. So we talk about naval posture, we talked about air defense preparedness, troop movements, and border areas. So major troop reinforcements along working boundary and what was LOC, because Pakistan now doesn't consider LOC as a de facto line of control after Shimla Agreement. So Pakistan has placed, gone into offensive defensive posture without giving too much of what. So, and then of course there is the nuclear deterrent signaling. Subtle but clear message about credible minimum deterrence being active. Movement. Obviously, what we when we talk about credible minimum deterrence is of course tactical nuclear weapons, and Pakistan has a very firm um, stand of using nuclear weapons. It's one of the first countries which came up with the policy of use of nuclear weapons, and tactical nuclear weapons is was of course came into when India started brass tacks, and of course in 80 was it 87 86 87 when any Indian troops movement into any part of Pakistan would be met with a tactical nuclear weapon. Of course, we've spoken in detail with Dr. Peter Tepesky. If you see to one of our podcasts with Dr. Peter Tepesky, he's one of a very bold Russian scientist on on nuclear and all about nuclear in this region, of course. So um, nuclear deterrence as a signaling, the Pakistanis came up with the nuclear command and control mechanism. Then there is the cyber information warfare, massive upsticks on Indian disinformation campaign targeting Pakistani morale is on, of course. That is being countered um, by media management. Of course, Pakistani cyber defense units are activated to counter fake narratives, firewall controls, identify bot networks, and message psychological operations, which is psychops. Public advisories issued to avoid sharing sensitive military information, especially to movements on social media or anywhere. Um, um, Obviously, what we call the human intelligence or of how do we put it? Humint, which is human intelligence, and Signet, which is SIGINT, which is signals intelligence efforts across contested regions. So our intelligence is working 24/7. Of course, Pakistan is at its highest alert at the moment. Several high-profile internal bursts of suspected informants and sabotages have been busted throughout from Balochistan. And one of the things which Khwaja Asif said, that any activities inside the countries were using proxies, which somehow Indian intelligence agencies used to create terror or chaos in Pakistan from Balochistan, Karachi, and KPK are being busted at the moment, as I say. And of course, there is the diplomatic channel and crisis management um, at play. Pakistan opened backdoor diplomacy by neutral countries. I'm sure that is happening at the moment. Calls for restraints and through third parties to prevent escalation beyond localized conflict. Diplomatic posturing is there. Pakistan is willing to defend, but remains committed to regional peace. Of course, that is all what is going on. But of course, um, we'll be talking more on these subjects uh, as time progress. So Pakistan is ready for war. Um, we are going for what is and then of course the use of allies and global outreach, mobilization of OIC and outreach to UN bodies. I'll give you an example. Just the Americans wanted to put up a bill on UNSC Security Council, since Pakistan being part of it and heading it, of course. Now the Pakistanis had this reservation on the Americans sending out a note of condemnation. So Americans changed it, and I think you'd see it today or tomorrow. But the Americans did it on Jaffa Express to UNSC, so it's nothing that important. But what's uh, what's more important, that any other countries, be it um, apart from India, has not named Pakistan. So from France to Middle East to Russia to even Israel, condemning what has happened. Pakistan is condemned what has happened in Kashmir as well. But of course, none of the countries has come close to naming Pakistan, because what we've seen previously in the Indian Parliament attacks is that it turned out to be a fake, or orchestrated by Indians themselves. So, one of the US foreign secretary, I think, was it Madeleine Albright, who came up with a book on the subject when Clinton was coming in 2001. Indian Parliament attacks was actually faked by Indians, and the Americans got to know it, and Americans didn't take that seriously. So they have this track record, but none of the countries, even the closest of India's allies, has named Pakistan, um, but condemned. So does Pakistan, and this is what is happening. So emphasis on Kashmir legal status and India's alleged uh, violation of international norms, of course, being pushed narratives of being a responsible nuclear state compared to India's aggression. But of course, that is there. So internal security tightening is another one part which Pakistan is doing. So let's just recap on certain points which we talked about. One is, of course, the naval posture and the blockade readiness. The Pakistan Navy has shifted its high alert defensive posture to protect sea lanes and strategic assets. Navy is on alert. Um, we will counter blockade any of the moves if India does that. If India tries to do that, I think India's economy would suffer greatly. All of their routes goes through its western borders, of course. Air defense preparedness is at highest alert. Of course, we have Eyes on Skies, AWACS and Skies, troop movement and border alert. We have discussed nuclear deterrent signaling, where Pakistan's credible minimum deterrence being active, and the posturing has been done. And of course, cyber information and information warfare. We talked about intelligence operations, which are ongoing at the moment. Diplomatic channels and crisis management cells are there. Of course, a use of allies and global outreach is happening. Internal security, and this is very important, crack down on banned output to send us strong signals internationally is um, something which we need to do. Suspension of political gatherings that should be exploited through highlighted tensions. I think Pakistan should immediately suspend all political gatherings and religious gatherings. At the moment, special security arrangements in sensitive cities like Karachi, Lahore, Islamabad, and border towns, and there has been a law. I think there is ongoing talk about anybody blocking roads at this moment or highways would should be declared an enemy, uh, and should be and there should be softly told to get lost from the highways. I think highways are part of economic welfare readiness of his monitor potential Indian efforts to influence IMF, FATF, and global economic bodies against Pakistan. Is there spending strategic reserves of oil, essential goods, and defense supplies? Is happening promotion of resilience and narrative being among business and civil sector? Is there civil defense mobilization? Is of course another vital part of what is happening. As I telling you, we are in a state of war. We are battle ready for what is going to come. I don't think India would go to an extent of what we call a hot war, but of course, if the push comes to shove, I think there would be some sort of attack which is coming from India. The state of Pakistan is ready for it. The people of Pakistan is ready for it. So advisories to civilians about emergency preparedness are there. Exercise and drills in border areas are happening. Pakistan stands fully alert on land, in the skies, and the sea. Um, a will for peace is strong, but a resolve to defend is even stronger. And that is the message, that our will for peace is strong, but a resolve to defend is even stronger. It is after a long time the people of Pakistan has gathered. And this is not the time for politics. This is not the time of dharnas. And I think we should rise above from our political affiliations, ethnic, religious biasness, and stand with the state of Pakistan. It is for the state of Pakistan that we live and will die for, of course. Um, and I'll repeat, in moments of heightened conflict between India and Pakistan, security is not just the responsibility of the military; it's about collective national duty. Today, Pakistan stands vigilant on land and in sea and skies. Armed forces are fully alert, and our diplomatic channels are active. Our nation remains united. I thank you, and we've discussed about how Pakistan is ready for war. God forbid, God, war is something no one wants. Um, Eventually, it would end up destroying hundreds and thousands of lives. Um, the solution for this is talks, um, and we don't want to talk to India now. And let's be very clear: there has to be if India would need to progress, there has to be international mediators. Now, we don't trust Indians. Indians don't trust us. So there has to be somebody who would mediate between what has happened. What is, of course, I would like to say it again, that what has happened in Kashmir um, is terrorism, but what is happening in Pakistan is sponsored terrorism in Balochistan to some of our other parts. So there is there is for the first time a voice within Pakistan that enough is enough, and I think we will not be uh, Bangladesh, we will not be Nepal, or we will not be Burma or Sri Lanka. We are Pakistan, and we are prepared. Um, and at the same time, this is not we are not against India or Indians. It's just that this uh, neo-Nazi government in India, which is somehow promoting this mass propaganda and and actually creating chaos in that region, that is a need of is an enemy. And I believe that even they have to come down to talks, and eventually there has to be talks. But again, um, I'll finish this off with 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 this thing that Pakistan stands fully alert on land, in the skies, and in the sea. Although, and our will is strong, but the resolve to defend is even stronger. Thank you.